The episode opens with Seven talking to someone over communications, and it turns out it's Tuvok from Star Trek Voyager. It's cool to see another Voyager castmate. Seven asks him if he can get in contact with Janeway. If not, contact others to help fight against the changelings. She tries to suss him out with a knowledge test. The test is based on a game that they used to play back on the USS Voyager. Tuvok passed the test. We even get the Voyager theme for a bit. It's a bit of a hopeful moment. But then Tuvok asks for a meeting and Seven gives a location because that's where she got her cybernetics fix. But this was another test to suss him out, as it turns out that he is in fact a changeling. As they attempt to track down the Titan, Picard asks where they are keeping Riker, and he morphs into Riker and tries to intimidate him. And that's all the Riker we get this episode. I know, I'm not really happy about it either, but, you know, maybe next episode we get more Riker. After the titles, we get an explanation as to why Worf and Raffi aren't in the episode.
He and Raffi are monitoring Starfleet security at Exoport. They confirm there's no mention of Will in custody.
Though I think we all know the real reason why.
Isn't this nice? I feel so warm and fuzzy. Can I ask you to do something kind of intimate? Will you shave me?
Of course.
Wait, what are you doing?
What's wrong?
I meant my pussy.
Beverly wants to create a weapon or a tool to weed out the changelings in Starfleet. They reference the events of the Dominion War, how Starfleet created the virus to wipe out the changelings. They devise a theory that the reason they took Picard's body and need Jack is because they are gonna use Jack's DNA to combine it with Picard's body to trick the genetic identifier to somehow influence Frontier Day. A valid theory as to why they want Jack. Not gonna lie, it is a plausible theory. However, back in Star Trek Nemesis, the Romulans were able to create essentially a clone of Picard with the samples of his DNA, and that was 20 years prior to the events of this season. So why don't the changelings get Romulan scientists who know cloning to take Picard's body and clone it? I mean, they have a whole body. But I digress. They go to see Data, but there's a bit of a problem. He last recalls the events of Nemesis where he sacrificed himself, but he switches to Lore and Geordi establishes that Data and Lore are the two dominant personalities that are fighting over the body, whereas Sung and B4 are essentially a memory file. Hang on, where the fuck is Lol? I mean, shouldn't there be some part of Lol in him? I guess Lol is a package deal with Data. When Picard asks Data why the changeling won his body, he says,
Extraction. Sung research indicates an anomalous form inside Jean-Luc Picard. Previous diagnosis of aromatic syndrome is in question.
So the changelings want his body because there is something inside him that they are after, and it was chalked up as aromatic syndrome. But then that means Jack doesn't have the disease. What would the reason be for this? Data pleads for help from Picard, and he shuts down Data. They can't delete Lore because this new android is much more complex than anything that has come before. Okay, I get why Alton Sung put all the personalities together for them all to eventually work with each other and let them just create one personality out of the others, but I mean, come on, Doc, it's fucking Lore. This is the same guy who sold out his homeworld for his own survival, then recruited Borg to kill people. I mean, come on, man. Seriously? Him?
It just raises too many questions.
Back on the strike, the mysterious bad guy chews out Vadic and uses the phrases your physiology and your kind, as it physically affects Vadic. What could it be? It builds up a good mystery as to what this creature is, and Vadic is visually distraught by this. It really shows her vulnerability to the character. She is clearly afraid of whatever this being is, and it builds a presence of an overarching bad guy. On the Titan, Jack is hearing voices in the turbo lift. As the rest of the crew leave, he is left with Sydney. Jack then flirts with Sydney, this smooth son of a bitch. As the shot continues, the audience as well as Jack can hear her thoughts, and he uses the thought she had of touching her hand to his advantage. I suppose you can use that phrase. Jack's eyes light up for some reason, and the tentacles are back. Christ. They better not do anything weird with Sydney. The Shrike then uses Riker's comm badge or some sort of signal to alert the Titan that they have him. Jack breaks down to Picard while Picard tries to reassure him, saying he has a plan. Vadic comes across the Titan as she is desperate to get Jack, really showing how upper management is really breathing down her neck. Vadic and her crew board the Titan, and it is a mess. Jack meets up with Vadic as she tries to get him to come with them, but Jack wants to play hide and seek. He meets up with Sydney as they try to box them into shields. Wait, that's their plan? To trap the changelings into force fields? There has to be like a better plan than this, right? Anyway, Jack traps Vadic and he meets up with Sydney, and she bumps into the big guys, and what are you doing, dude? She is right there, literally right in front of you. Did your goopy eyes stop working? Dude!
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Okay. Let's just reset. So you're telling me this guy, Vadic's right-hand man, couldn't even shoot a girl right in front of him. He had a clear 5 seconds to just shoot her. That is some fucking plot armor if I've ever seen it. Sorry, just that whole shot is just...
That is one big pile of shit.
Anyway, they are trapped, so Geordi tries to beam them out of there, but Lore locks him out, stopping him from beaming Sydney and Jack out. We come back to Vadic as she tries to whistle and sing, with Beverly entering to talk to her, saying that she is thinking of killing her. With Picard entering from behind, they tell her that they know everything. The stealing of Picard's body, Jack's blood, and the changeling's change in physiology. Vadic asks if they know Jack's physiology and that Jack wasn't supposed to be for Beverly. Again, raising questions about Jack as to what is he really. Vadic tells Picard and Beverly that one of their own had to steal a cure for them, showing how they only knew of Starfleet's side of the story and not the Changeling side. And it's another good reference to Odo back in Deep Space Nine. Vadic gives a long monologue as to how she has the ability of her physiology and that Starfleet had conducted tests on her and other changelings.
And you did so while inflicting more torment on me. And those I loved. So don't tell me I have no regard for love, or innocence, or pain.
It's a decent enough backstory, but my first thought was, didn't they just borrow some elements from X-Men Days of Future Past, where Mystique's blood was used to make Sentinels so that they can evolve? My second thought was, her backstory really boils down to revenge and destroying Starfleet. Then the changelings can, what else, take over the universe.
Of course!
Meanwhile, Lore is beginning to take over all systems while Geordi tries to stop him.
Admirable.
but mistaken.
Jack is starting to, I guess, control his new abilities, since his eyes light up and he is able to hear Sydney's thoughts again. Vadic does her music thing as she does her Hannibal Lecter impression behind the force field. Vadic further continues her backstory, stating that Daystrom Station was where she was kept, and Vadic reveals that she was part of a Project Proteus. The scientist that was conducting experiments on her was killed by her, and she took the face of the scientist to remind herself that all solids are pretty much bad guys. Vadic further mocks Beverly using Jack's face.
Are you prepared to lose another son?
Oh damn, Vadic just going for the jugular on that one. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the backstory. On the one hand, I get it. During the Dominion War, she was experimented on and she grew to hate solid beings. It is a very understandable motivation for a villain to have, and it makes her more empathetic and allows the audience to be sympathetic towards her. On the other hand, I kind of find it a tad flat just because it boils down to I want revenge because of A, B, and C. And Amanda Plummer's performance as Vadic is odd. If you watch episode 2 and 6, she is comical. She is a goofy original series villain. But in episode 3 and 4, she is very much a down-to-business sort of villain. In this episode, she does feel like she is trying to be an amalgamation of a bit of a goofy villain while being serious. I think Vadic is a strong villain for the modern era of Star Trek, but she doesn't hold a candle to villains like Khan, the Borg, or Gul Dukat. The force fields keeping Sydney and Jack safe are failing, as the head mass changeling is breaking through by just banging the force field. Man, that's a bit lame. Just hitting it? That's a bit of a design flaw, isn't it? That's like if I just kept banging on the door and I broke through. Only this is 2023, the 21st century. I would imagine in the 25th century, force fields wouldn't have the lifespan of a fucking door. Geordi tries talking to Data, but Lore said he's gotten rid of him. This intercuts with Picard and Beverly stating that Vadic is too calm, and if she gets out, she will get their son. Geordi tells Data that,
Data, you made me better. You did. You made me a better man, a better father, a better friend. And when you died, it broke me. But see, you put me back together. You repaired me. The memory of you.
LeVar Burton is giving a fantastic emotional performance in this scene. I absolutely love this exchange. Data, or rather Lore, is just staring in silence as Geordi pours his heart out about his friend. Picard asks if they have changed really that much, that they would kill Vadic as an unarmed prisoner.
The moment we allowed her to board, we invited death onto this ship.
That's such a great line from Beverly, showing the sheer scared nature that Vadic has inflicted onto her after she has been hunting Beverly and Jack down. Picard and Beverly get ready to execute Vadic in order to save their own son, as Lore deactivates the force fields. Well, at least they didn't stand there with their thumbs up their asses. Looking at you, Seven. Jack and Sydney are cut off from one another as they fight off their respective changelings. However, Jack either takes control or helps Sydney to fight off the changeling, but I'm sorry, this is a changeling. Why wouldn't it just stab her like Vadic did back in the flashback? Other than that gripe, it's a cool scene establishing the abilities of Jack. Geordi was able to get through to Data as he disables the force field between Jack and Sydney. Sydney is obviously very confused and shaken by the fact that Jack was able to get in her head. They run from Vadic as her henchman is still alive.
There he is.
still alive.
Beverly and Picard find a way to track the changelings as they have a trace amount of a substance contained in the formula that they were exposed to. Picard warns Shaw to stop the changelings from accessing the lift to the bridge of the Titan. However, like Sydney before, Shaw didn't confirm his kills. Shaw, you're so shit at playing Call of Duty. Everyone knows to confirm a kill, you need to take his dog tags. Shaw is then beaten the crap out of in the turbo lift as Vadic's men take over the Titan and hold the crew hostage. Vadic addresses the crew of the Titan, but also specifically talking to Jack. In a surprising little detail, as Vadic addresses the Titan, we get 2 shots of Shaw with tears going down his face. It's just so impactful. This man's first priority was the safety of his crew, and he wasn't able to protect them. This hardass, who has shown very little emotions outside his outburst in episode 4, it really shows us how much he loves his crew. Vadic then teases the audience of who Jack really is as the episode ends. So this episode is, I'm not gonna lie, it's the weakest episode so far. This is a good episode, but considering the level of Trek we have had until now, out of the 7 weeks, we have 1 episode that isn't as good as the last 6. I've heard that this episode is a much better part of next week's episode as a 2-parter, but judging it as its own episode, as episode 7, it is not as good as the last 6. I also feel like the episode could have used a couple more minutes in some spots. It feels quite short. When looking at the runtime compared to the other episodes, it is the shortest by far, coming in at 46 minutes, behind the second episode, Disengaged, at 49 minutes. I hope next week's episode can bring up the pace, as this episode was a bit more flawed. And another thing, the cliffhanger set up in the last week's episode with Will seeing Troy isn't resolved in the episode. We don't even get to see what the hell happened after that. Look, I'm not saying we open with the Titan, then switches to Troy and Riker for 40 minutes, then at the end goes back to the Titan. No, of course not. That would be silly. All I'm saying is maybe 1 or 2 scenes following up on episode 6's cliffhanger. Anyway, I think this episode was still good, just nowhere near as great as last week's episode or episode 4, but it is a good episode. It's not as good as any of the last episodes, but you can't really help it. This does feel like a filler episode to just get to the next bit. And this also feels like a lead-in to the climax of Season 3. I cannot wait for next week's episode because it leaves off where Vadic seems like she's going to reveal Jack's past and what he really is. But that's for next week's episode. If you guys like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell and share all the good stuff. Seriously, it really means a lot that people are watching my content, even though it hasn't been as much as the first review. I'm so glad that people are still watching and really are enjoying Star Trek Picard. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and have a good one.